everybody. We are live on Tuesday night. I am Dr. Boz. Welcome to the Dr. Boz Show. And we are for real going to show you what our A1Cs are this week. We reverse medical problems here with healthy keto living. And we have some teammates that got brave enough to check their A1Cs with me. And then we decided when they weren't as good as we wanted them to be that we would all commit to checking them again together. We went through last week on some of the things that we did to improve them, but one of the results wasn't back yet. So we are now actually going to reveal how did those A1Cs turn out. And I'm scrunching my nose because there's some disappointment on this show. So I will show you some of the things we did and what we are going to talk about. But first, we have some traditions on the show, and one of them is checking my numbers. I'm going to check my glucose and ketones live here. And if you are in my course thank you, Bonnie, for saying loud and clear. I hadn't heard anybody say that yet, so I was a little nervous. If you are in my 21-day course, we have started something on Sunday that has been a challenge for many people. Some of them are happy about the challenge. Other ones are tolerating the challenge, but I have not fasted since Sunday. I have done what I call a sardine fast since Sunday. I woke up this morning to find my blood sugar to be 45, and it has been like 45. That's 45. I had to look like 3 times. Like, I didn't feel bad, but it was definitely low. So I haven't eaten my sardines yet today. I am truly hungry. And I'm checking glucose and ketones here before we get started, but I am also going to be drinking some ketones and checking them throughout the show. I do that not because I have to. I make pretty good ketones, but I have lots of people out there that think that it is, that they have lots of questions about why would ketones need to be consumed, and when are the times that we do that. So hopefully some of those questions will come throughout the live, but we have a really great show. And again, like I said, some disappointments, so we're going to get to that. Before we do that, I wanted to say a couple of quick things about, oopsie, wrong. Ooh, that was a sneak peek on what you're going to get. So we have our Keto Pa-Lou-za here that I wanted to, again, put a shout out to. My friend Autumn is sponsoring Keto Pa-Lou-za, and she is leading this. So I wanted to show you Keto Pa-Lou-za. So that is KetoPalous or OUZA.com. So spelled just right there out in front of you. A really great conference in Louisville. I can't come this year, but I just really want to make sure she has a great experience. She's got quite the speaker lineup. And if you're looking for an event, I highly recommend following her and just learning from her. I wanted to also touch on, I haven't done this for a few weeks, where the audiobook got reviewed by several of you. Thank you. That's really helpful. The name of the book is KetoCONTINUUM. It's the second book that I wrote. It is the foundation for what the curriculum I use in my clinic. I have everybody fill out the workbook. I run my own support group here that's free on Tuesday mornings. We meet at the bowling alley across the way, and I have all of them use that book too, especially when they're struggling. But I like to point out a few really great reviews. Again, 5 stars in all the areas, and an audio book that means content, what the quality was, and was what the story was about. So although I knew a lot about keto diets and the story approach to conveying info isn't the style in which I learn best, this is a valuable read if you want a real keto plan with results. So yes, and that was by Wendy. Yvonne said, it's all about the chemistry is the answer to why this way of life works. I started on my keto journey after reading the first book, Any Way You Can. My journey has been reignited by listening to the story of listening to David's story. I'm so sorry to hear about Grandma Rose. Thanks again for sharing your story. And then the last one I'll do from today is Dara, who says, Dr. Bosworth is an amazing storyteller and teacher. She has a great way of explaining the science and ketosis in a manner that anyone can understand. Love the book. anyway, I really appreciate, as a self-published author, the only way that book gets surfaced is by people leaving reviews and people recommending it to one another. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It is the fastest way to learn. The audiobook was something I didn't want to take the time for, but so many of my patients just didn't have, they had the foggy brain that comes with age and some of the uncomfortableness of not being great at their life. So I did it, and I can't tell you how many patients said, had it not been for the audiobook that I listened to his story, I would have never got through it. So as much as I didn't want to do it, I'm glad I did. Last stop before we get on to the event of the night is our website, bozmd.com. There's a couple things that if you are new to the website, there are a couple of free downloads. The ebook and our spreadsheet are things that if you're a newbie and just want to see the top 50 facts that we have about keto, this spreadsheet or this PDF has links to all my favorite first few videos. There's 50 different facts in there about what fat does. I wrote it. I loved it. It was fun to do it, and then to link it to the videos that, again, if you're not in the phase of life where reading is what you're interested in, click over and watch the top 50 videos that I think really do tell the story of keto quite easily. And then if you are a numbers person, we love numbers on this channel. We're very much about the data. That spreadsheet is available to you. I did want to take a quick visit to the Dr. Boz Favorites. I haven't been there in a while, and I wanted to push on this carnivore. Although this is the liver bundle, I will tell you my favorite is the beef bundle. We are in the middle of a sardine fast at my house, as well as what happens in this course that I'm leading. And I have teenage boys. I have one that's is in the throes of wrestling season. He needs to weigh in and not lose any body muscle, but some body fat to make weight. And I'm really a freak about saying you're not going to compromise the growth of your hippocampus and other parts of your brain. You're in a very fast developmental phase of your life. And so he has to eat sardines right along with his mother for these 3 days, as does my husband and the other boys in the house. And they are all troopers. They're doing a great job. But my son likes when he puts those carnivore crisps. If you haven't done the crumbles, the only 2 ingredients in those in their products, it is a great company where they have Redmond salt, which is my favorite salt that I recommend, and they take great meat and they dry it. So it's just like the easiest of menus. He sprinkles some of that into his sardines, which makes them more palatable for him. And like I said, my blood sugar this morning was 45. That's crazy. I felt good. I felt really good. All right, so I'm going to put my ears in and warn the gals that they're about to be on camera here, that we are going to introduce our Zoom group again. Hello, ladies. Let's see if we've got a sound check from everybody. Can you introduce yourself and say your names?
I'm Jillian.
There you go.
Yeah, from California.
From California. And then Maddison.
I'm Maddison. I live in Montreal, Canada.
Yes, she's our Canadian on the team. Keeps us talking straight. So ladies, welcome back. Yes, we have a couple of improvements that we have to our channel. You'll notice you can see them, and praise the Lord, they can see me, and hopefully you can hear them. So I'm waiting for someone to say that sound check was good before I go on to the next step. But I'm going to repeat a few of the things that oh yes, yay, loud and clear. Thank you, Bonnie. That really makes it easier for me to go to the next step, because we do have some of us that got a better report and some of us that didn't have quite the improvements we were hoping for. So I'm going to do a fast recap of the slides, and this time I can have one of the gals on with me. So let's start with Maddison. Maddison saying, yep, she did lose 35 pounds when she said, I'm going to do this keto. I can't be on this Dr. Boz team without at least trying this. And when I said, yes, I think it is going to help your arthritis pain, and your body mass index now is closer to like 21. You're very posh for a young woman. So good job. So when we look at where Maddison started, we went through this last week, but I think it's really important to just see what her eating window looked like. It was not terrible. She had a little bit of that morning rise of her cortisol. That's normal. She started out with her blood sugars in that, high 80s, low 90s, and she would rise her cortisol in the morning, would stimulate her blood sugar to rise just enough to wake her up. Then she would have her like mid-morning meal, and then an evening meal that resulted in these average blood sugar of 111 or 5.5 on her A1C. As she said, well, I do want this to be better. I think at her age, her numbers should be better. I said, well, where could you work on improving things? And snacking was one of her sins. She would say, there's food around. It's not that bad. It looks pretty healthy. I've been told fruit is great for me. And boy, it would really send her sugars up. She could get those sugars back down. But I like to point out that notice that these sugars right here do not go back to her baseline here. So when she's eating during the day, that baseline sugar is definitely not returning all the way to baseline. So that was one of the clues that we said, okay. And then Maddison, again, she's thin. She looks great. And so when family would come to town, she wouldn't just eat. She would say, I can have these foods. Everybody else my age has these foods. And you'd see these sugars head up to that, 150 to 160 range. And that's not terrible because they do come back down and she gets a nice number at the bottom. But she had a lot of family, a lot of friends and family visit her last month. So it happened more often than she wanted. She did get through one of her firsts, which is a fast. And her fast started out with this normal version on day 1. Day 2, she had her little cortisol blip like she typically would. But then she went that whole day without eating, really got her sugars to be, down into that, 70 range. And the next day, she went back to not really overeating, but a pretty routine pattern of her 2 meals per day. When we look at how well she's had tightened things up by the end of the 6 weeks, she was able to put that, this is her old eating window, this is where she started. This is where she ended up. So notice that that second eating was closer to that 4:30, 5 o'clock was when she would start eating that second meal, as opposed to where she used to be, which was a meal that was closer to 6 o'clock or late after 5:30. So she moved her eating window a little earlier in the day. That's very helpful for the metabolism. And again, notice that these afternoon sugars don't get all the way back down to her baseline. Her baseline is somewhere closer to the 80s that she gets to when she sleeps, but during the day, she doesn't recover all the way back from that. It's just a hint of where her metabolism isn't as robust as we wanted it to be. And when we looked at her numbers that came back, this is where you can put your sad face on, Maddison, that her A1C went up to 5.7. And oh, dang, does that stink. Her average blood sugar up to 116. So when you first saw this, what were your thoughts?
I was so mad.
Yeah, right? Like, not fair. I am thin. I do this right. I did this stupid diet because I wanted to get healthier. And then I worked on these things and the numbers went higher. So we've talked a little bit offline about this because I actually didn't want to tell her alive on the show that this was her number. I wanted her to like process it because it's rotten. It's not fair when things don't get better when you make improvements. Do you want to share a couple things? One of the things I didn't say out loud, but I want you to say, what do you think caused the blood sugars to go higher after we've talked a little bit?
So even though I knew I had to be accountable, I still had a lot of cheat meals. I had a lot. The worst part is going to a restaurant, having people come over. I went away for a lot of weekends. And I noticed my blood sugar takes a while, and my ketones takes longer than I would think to get back to really good numbers. So I think it takes a while to recover.
Like you're doing
And I'm
this,
doing it more than I think, obviously.
right?
I thought I was doing better, but obviously I'm not.
So you're doing this sardine challenge with us. I mean, and you're checking numbers. Again, I think when you're on the team and we talk about keto all the time and we make videos about keto, we make slides about keto, that checking our numbers gets to be like, oh, wait, we need to do that too? But during this course, we're having everybody do this, and our data is synchronized with all 200 people to see what our numbers are. And of course, as much as we study our own, I think it's powerful on when we all, try to do this, what we're doing right now, which is only sardines for 3 days. And you actually had salmon around, canned salmon with oil in it. And tell me what your sugars were this morning on, because this is Tuesday, so now you're good 48 hours into only sardines.
Yeah. So it was 5.1, which is, I believe, 94.
Right. So you woke up with a blood sugar at 94.
Which was much higher than the day before. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah. And the day before, what was it?
I think it was in the 80s.
Okay, his blood sugar down in the 80s. So a couple of things that I would look at before coming to a conclusion of why that happened is, what do you think? Do you think the timing of your blood sugar check was pretty consistent? Like get up, check your number right away, or did you check it a little bit later today?
I woke up differently. I usually wake up with an alarm, and I didn't wake up with an alarm, and I didn't feel great when I woke up. I don't know if that makes a difference, but
Sure, a poor night's sleep will do it. I've noticed this in mine too. Like today, I had to drive my son into. I have keto group on Tuesdays, so I have to get up at 5:20, and I get up at 5:20. Walked over and checked my numbers right, within like 5 minutes. Like it was very methodical. And again, when I saw the 45, I'm like, 45? That's crazy. I checked it again. 45. That's twice. But when I sleep in, I sleep through my cortisol rise sometimes. And it also doesn't always, so I'll hit it on the way up or I'll hit it higher in that curve. I also know that when I do not sleep well, when I have that heavy, or that I toss and turn more, that my morning sugars are always higher than they should be. So what were your ketones this morning?
I believe 1.6, but they were 2 yesterday.
Yeah. So I'll say like a 2.0 here for her ketones. So they were, when it was an 80, they were up to here. So that's a pretty good Dr. Boz ratio of 40. And then today, what'd you say, 1 point?
1,
1.1?
oh, 1.6 maybe.
1.6? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. Okay. So
So it's not horrible.
No, not bad at all. So definitely your body's working. And if you did this every day, you would definitely have lower blood sugars. What's interesting is this is a time where we're asking you to eat only sardines. Your numbers are definitely, they're in a great range. It's what would happen if you had one of those later cheat meals. And so the cheat meal got you way up into the 160s, and then it takes a little longer to come down, and it shoots up pretty high. That is not uncommon. Like when I look at why was my blood sugar, why was my A1C 5.5 at the beginning? It's because my husband is allergic to stevia. So whenever we go out, he checked his blood sugars too. He's doing a sardine challenge too. So we're all manning up and getting our numbers in a better shape. But before that, we'd be at all these new restaurants that are here in Tampa that are fun, and it feels like we're on vacation because it's not snowing out in our life. And it was just so easy to share a dessert, and I would only have a couple bites, but I would love every minute of it, and I did eat. I had a lot of them. I tried a lot of desserts. So I feel your pain when you say, this is not fair. I totally wanted the numbers to be better. But the one thing I didn't talk about in your case, and that I think is still really important to appreciate, is as your blood sugars are figuring out where they land, that warning of an autoimmune disorder does suggest that your insulin has been overshooting. I mean, I'm going to put you guys all back on the other screen, so just be warned, and I'm pretty sure the sound works on that screen, so let's just go here. So all three of you on. But when you look at numbers that that show not only an average, like hemoglobin A1C shows an average. What we don't know is how much insulin was it taking to control your blood sugars. And as we begin to improve how, your insulin getting better, you've lost the weight, what's hidden behind the scenes that isn't being tested is that in an autoimmune disorder, there is usually a time where the insulin is higher produced to keep the blood sugars lower. And as that insulin resistance gets worse, the trail of the increasing blood sugars it's dragging behind your behavior change. So even though you said, okay, I shaped things up pretty good starting when I was in Texas, when we were all there as a team and we checked these A1Cs, and that was in July, early July. 6 weeks later, my sugars are higher, but there's two parts of that. The prodrome of what was happening before that was real, that you weren't working on this. Those sugars were pushing the insulin to be higher, but you didn't get to see the sugars higher because that insulin resistance was still unfolding. As you corrected some of the behavior, but not all the behavior, and God knows all three of us on this panel tonight have our places where I'm like, oh, I didn't do great. I still screwed it up. Is that this is a 3-month average that this test measures. And you really got to measure half of what that did. So now the reason why I find it so powerful to check that sooner than the 3 months is notice how easy it was to just kind of say, I'm doing better. I fasted once. That's a good thing. And then the average blood sugars are still rising. By looking at your numbers, you get to see the pattern that you weren't able to see the month before. Like that 3-month average it's very telling. And by checking it, we were trying to do it every month, and we kind of had a hiccup at getting it across the Canadian border and back to the test. So we ended up checking it about 6 weeks. But we have another 6 weeks that would be the full reset from what they were in July. If you look at your red blood cells, they last 100 days. This test is looking at how glycated, how much sugar is in those hemoglobins circling around in your red blood cells. And you get to have those for the full 100 days. So there are two reasons why this story is not fully told. We're going to need a couple more points of data to look at this. So first of all, I would say don't be discouraged. When we get to the final slides here, because you're going to see mine too, we're going to say, what else could we do? And do you want to join me again for checking again in another few weeks? I won't make you answer that right now. Let's go to Jillian's slides here. So I think, let me go here. Yeah. So here's Jillian's. I'll just quickly remind you that at week 1 for Jillian, she's been working on her blood sugar a couple of times. She leads a couple of support groups. She's actually one of the coaches in the 21-day challenge and has 20 students following her. And I like to say, you know what? The best coaches are the ones who've gone through a season where they messed it up and then they figured it out. So nothing like experience to give us those teaches. But I point out that her fat-filled coffee was in the morning. She also exercises most days of the week. So you're going to see that blood sugar rise. That's not a bad thing. We talked about that last week on the live, so we won't touch that again. But her average blood sugar of 5.7 was, again, of 116 was her average. She was disappointed because it used to be lower. And at which point we said, okay, hon, we definitely need to work on a few things. One of those being, let's stop eating so late. The snacks of popcorn, I think, were your favorite, I heard from last week. And I can relate. I just told you about the eating dessert every time we went out to eat. And even though this was her eating window, that in those 6 weeks, 6 weeks later, she was able to say, I'm really going to give up that fat-filled coffee. So you can see in that background, right here is where her fat-filled coffee used to be. That really did lower the blood sugars here. She was able to then not spike her sugars so high when she exercised, meaning she's still releasing about the same amount of sugars when she exercises, but it comes back down to a really good baseline for her. In between her 2 meals, she doesn't have the time that it would take to lower that blood sugar, but it fits really nicely in her in her life that she's able to put that eating window. Let's try that again. That wasn't quite the right line I was trying to draw. That eating window, right at what you think about 5 o'clock is what you try to get that second one in by.
Yeah.
So that's like a good.
Or earlier if I can.
Yeah, but that's a place where she said I can live there. I'm not gonna like white knuckle it for 2 weeks and then fall crashing and burning. And so as she looks at her average blood sugar now is 5.5. So raise the roof. She did knock it down by, yeah. So 2 points, is that what you did? Yeah, from 5.7 to 5.5, right? So excellent job. If you had to say what you think you did the best job at, what was the hardest job for you to give up? I know you mentioned this last week, but let's just touch base on it again. What was the hardest part for you?
Not putting a single bite of food into my mouth after 5 o'clock.
Oh gosh, it's so hard, isn't it? Like I am so used to comforting on the couch with husband and food. I want husband and food. The food part is really important. But dang, it totally changes the morning numbers. Probably the most, actually. So in your sardine challenge, you again are one of the coaches. So we did the sardine challenge as you were prepping for the course, and now we have all of our students and our coaches doing this sardine. So tell the folks about what's happening with your sardine. How's that working in your life?
I wrote down some numbers. First of all, I just want to say, if you're sitting out there and you're going, I will never do a sardine challenge, that was me. So I didn't do it with the rest of the coaches 2 weeks ago when we were training. I didn't. I was like, I'll do it when the real course comes.
Okay.
So now I have done it. And my morning blood sugars last week, when everyone else's was going down because of their sardine challenge, mine stayed in the 90s, and I even had a 107 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And with that new meter, my blood sugar is much higher by 20 points sometimes than it used to be. With the other meter. I'm not saying names, so I'm gonna let you do that.
Okay, all right.
And my ketones have gone above 0.5. Now, some people are posting 2.2 this morning. I haven't gotten there, but I'm really happy that my blood sugar is back down in the low 80s.
Right. That's a huge deal.
First thing in the morning. So I'm very happy about that. And I have to say, I've now eaten 4 cans of sardines in the last 2 days. And you know what? They aren't if I can do it, anybody can, because I really did not like those little suckers.
Yeah, it's true. We've had several people say, I mean, you're one of the coaches, and then we had several of the other students say, Dr. Boz, I took those sardines, I put them in my mouth, and then I threw them up. And I'm like, oh, drama. So I said, coaches, I need you to go back, because I've done this history many times. And I want you to ask, did they actually throw up the sardines, or did they just burp after swallowing sardines? And what they'll say is, well, they threw up in the back of my mouth. I'm like, oh, stop. So your first world problems of not liking sardines, when we look at a high nutrient dense food that is really good, high in omega-3s, we tell a story of Mr. John Ford, which I can see here on the live. He had the best experience where he's like, I'm just going to try this sardine thing. He actually used mackerel as his fish. And he starts out with an omega quant, which is another test that you can see how good are your omega-3 tests. And his was like as crappy as mine. Like, we live in the Midwest. We don't eat fish. This is where it was. And his was like 4 or 5, like what mine was. And he started out with this 3-day sardine fast and realized how much better his blood sugars were doing and how much better he was producing ketones. He had a couple of goals to reach, so he really stuck to it and said, I'm going to do this for a whole month. And he's got one of those engineering brains, which he wanted to track everything. And so he did his omega quant test at the end of the 30 days. And he goes, I'm approaching dolphin with 12% of my body having this omega-3, which is like so protective for brain disorder, so protective for brain, diseases of aging of the brain. I don't know that I can do it that much, but you're well on your way with 4 cans since noon on Sunday. And Now you have a husband watching all this, so is he eating any sardines?
Sadly, no,
Not yet.
but that's okay. I'm eating them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, congratulations on the improvement.
yeah,
So
the old lady wins.
I know, right? That's fantastic. We are very jealous of our sweet Maddison's youth and her ability to see not just how it looks to be in ketosis as easily as she could get there, but also how do you play it forward? I'll leave you on screen as I share my numbers with folks. So if I go back to what I was doing on week 1 of I didn't put this in last week, but I usually have my black coffee. I mean, it's probably about 2 to 3 times a month that I'll have cream in my coffee, and it's usually when my husband is flirting with me that he'll buy me coffee with cream in it. So I'm pretty good about that. Morning cortisol goes up, it goes right back down. I really don't eat until I'm with my son at night. This is where that dessert often comes in, as if dad joins us, we cheat. My average blood sugars, though, had been pretty high, 5.6. And again, I think I've been improving things. I think the weekends when we would do sporting events, I wasn't quite as tight with not snacking during the day or eating with the family. A couple of times a week, I will have egg bites from Starbucks, and I usually feel like I deserve them after my fast. So they're usually on Wednesdays and Fridays. But they're only about 400 to 500 calories. I mean, they're highly keto, but they are another rise in my blood sugar. I mean, it really does. Even just those little bit of eggs will send my blood sugar up to the 115. I go long enough between those meals during the day that I could see my blood sugar return back to baseline. But when I eat supper, and that's without even doing anything naughty. When I add dessert, my blood sugars go up to the 160s. So that's me. So when I had to figure out why in the world would I have a high blood sugar, I can have my meal, and then if I do anything with Chad later on in the evening, boy, I love it. I love sharing the food with him. God, if I have a glass of wine in there, then I make even worse decisions. So it was not difficult for me to see that, my eating gets, it's easy to see where my mistakes were. So typical life for me was that day 1. That would be like a Saturday. On Sundays, Sundays by 2 o'clock, I'm done eating. So I try to fast through this show, which gets me about a 55 hour, depending on when I start, a fast every week. And pushing to 72 is probably 1 in 6, 1 in 7 times. And I'm usually praying for somebody. I'm really, a patient's not doing well, and I'll just use that as a time to push for a deeper fast. I, of course, get a much better blood sugar way down here by day 3. That it'll go down into the 55, 60s in the morning. Again, 45 is what I got with my sardine fast, and I'm pretty proud of that. Like, wow, that was pretty low. But when I look at what I did truly try to clean up, is I told husband, I can't keep doing this. I love dessert as much as you do. My husband's allergic to stevia, so when we go out, I don't make it at home, and so then the chef always makes it gooier and better, and it always tastes really good. But I did improve to a 5.3, so I went down from an average blood sugar that was at 111 down to about a 105, 106, somewhere in there. And I do think that there's still plenty of room for improvement. I know that as we're doing this 21-day challenge with our students, and then the 2 weeks of prepping for the 21-day challenge, I had tightened up the case even more, because my blood sugars are ending up on everybody's spreadsheets across these classrooms. So I keep thinking, well, I've got accountability times, all the students and all the coaches, plenty of people watching what I do, that in the 6-week interval, I went from 5.6 to 5.3. So I forgot. Oh, okay. I forgot that I started out at 5.6. So for the most part, I do want to say all 3 of us had places that we could improve, that we tried to improve. And I'm going to ask you now on live television, so there's no peer pressure. Um, that I'm going to check mine again in 6 weeks. I would gladly make sure that you have the kits to check your A1Cs again. And we'll try to get 4 weeks, but I bet you it's going to be, if we go 4 weeks from now, it's probably 6 weeks from where we checked it. And that gives us a full solid month to work on the places that will improve our sugars. What do you think, Maddison? How many people are visiting you in the next month? Oopsie, I can't hear you.
I must admit, as soon as I did that test, I went a little crazy because I did my A1C test. So I feel a little bad about that, but I'm game.
Yeah.
And I feel way more motivated because that 5.7 really scares me.
Yeah, it's like, right. I mean, if you're looking at a family history who has autoimmune disorders, and we had a case, our class picks cases where we talk about what's happening with their health, what motivates them. And there was a young woman or a woman who's got young kids. Well, they're in their 20s, but so they're in their life, they're doing their life, but she was motivated to do this because she has autoimmune disorders. She has several food insensitivities. And I talked about how powerful it is that she thought, well, maybe I should go check my kids for these antibodies to see if they have these problems too. And I'm like, lady, that's 20 years down the road. What you can see when people have autoimmune disorders or when they have a host of all these food insensitivities is their blood sugars are high. Their average blood sugar is way too high for their age. And at your young age, with that history of autoimmune disorder, there is hardly a better motivation than to, walk with me in the clinic and see what does it look like when that arthritis that's autoimmune motivated, what does it do to the destruction of those joints over 10 years? And as much as I love those cheat meals as well, those cheat meals are something that I'm going to try really hard not to do until my A1C is where I want it to be. And then I'm going to try to keep it there, which means I probably can't afford to cheat as often as I would like to, as is true with probably my husband. So it's a pact for us. But I welcome you. And I think, it's part of being in relationships with people is that I wouldn't want your suffering any more than you want it. But I also have the wisdom of a few more trips around the sun to say, oh, let me be on this team with you. Let me do this for another 6 weeks because I know it will motivate you to do it. And it's hard. It's hard to do it alone. Nothing like putting you on live television to talk about it. And then you're in the class that we're leading, so it does become easier to be part of a group that's all working on their numbers. And you look across the numbers of everybody posting and having this synchronized dashboards. I think you can appreciate you have really good numbers. It is only that when those cheats happen that you're turning into me as far as the numbers will get higher and higher. I mean, my blood sugars shoot way up when I cheat. And I know that because I've worn a continuous glucose monitor enough that as soon as that continuous glucose monitor is off, I'm like, time for dessert. I'm like, but I shouldn't have done that because the sugars still go high. They still cause the problems. And so do not beat yourself up. You're doing way better, and you have a way better heads up about this at a younger age than Jillian and I. We had to do a lot of reversing. How about you, Jillian? Are you up for another recheck in 4 weeks?
I would love to.
Yeah, I think
I've got it. So go ahead.
I think being a leader in this course makes it even like you got a lot of people watching you.
Yeah, the nighttime eating is, I can't get lax on that because that's what I'll do is my husband loves to snack at night and I'm like, what you got over there? And even though it's like nuts or pork rinds or something like that, it's just like, I don't need any more calories. I need to do my left-handed loops.
Yes.
And then the other thing is I've been very lax about fasting. I'll maybe do 24 hours, which, as you know, is not really a fast. It's more of a time restricted eating. So I'm going to continue doing 48 to 72 hours with sardines.
Yeah, next week we get to tell the students about what they do for next week's challenge. So I know a bunch of them are watching tonight, so I won't give away, but I bet they can probably figure out what we're going to do next week. So Also, I just want to say how brave it is to share your life's journey on YouTube. Obviously, I do this for a living, so I'm out here in the raw, showing people my life. But it's an honor to have you on my team, to do life with you, and even to do setbacks with you, because it makes me just want to be a better encourager and leader. And it also just says, yeah, we all have seasons like that where it just takes a friend to walk through a season that can prevent a lot of suffering for someone with an autoimmune disorder, and to stay the course. I think that's fun life.
Well, I'm very honored to be on your team and one of the coaches, and the power of coaching a group of around 20 people as we're into the beginning of our second week now, to see the relationships forming. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, it's been very inspiring to me too, that I again, it's the first time we've done this course, and I could spend the whole time watching these comments, commenting back to them, creating cases for all of the students that are in there, because I think all of them have this connection to somebody that looks just like them, that's suffering just like them, and to share that is really where people say, I mean, first of all, Maddison is not alone. Maddison's doing way better than I was doing at her age. I was in residency at her age still, and that means I was eating all day, all night, pregnant, doing things that, oh, good Lord. So you're far ahead as far as it's a tiny little setback. Isn't it great that you got to see that? Because the prevention is a million times easier than doing what Jillian and I have been doing for the last half dozen years, which is the undo button. And I think most of the folks in our class, you get to see the pathology that shows up when a little bit of a habit turns into years of high insulin. That isn't the worst blood sugar. You have pretty good blood sugars, but the amount of insulin it's taking to do that is clearly higher than both you or I appreciated. So you're safe. You're on a good team.
Thank you.
So let's go to the questions. I'm going to head back over. I think it's not going to have you guys on. Oopsie, wrong one. Not going to have you guys on the chat, but again, it's very encouraging for them to share their story like that. So I'm again very thankful they were able to do that. Before let's actually take this over to the questions. I'm going to find that spot. We've got a couple of them up there. If you have questions, we try to sample the questions that really do reflect what we've been talking about in the cases tonight, or in those presentations. We have some great content that we are working on for the other parts of our YouTube show. We know that in the life of our channel, putting out content is something we really care about. We want it to connect to our audience, and this course that we've been putting on has really siphoned all of our attention, but I want you to expect videos coming back out on a regular basis here in the future. And again, we like to hear your questions, because it does inspire me to make videos about the things that people ask. So I'm going to hop over to those questions and see what you all are asking in the questions. All right, Karen writes in and says, doing the sardine challenge and still at a Dr Boz ratio over 200. Should I add BHB or MCT? Here's the part that I would really encourage you, Karen, is when looking at that sardine challenge, there is a ton of things that go right if you can stay the course of just holding onto the sardines. Now, if you feel low on energy, my first reflex would be to have you supplement with BHB. But I'm going to guess you've got a Dr Boz ratio over 200 because you've been insulin resistant for more than a hot minute. You've had that problem for a season. And when you look at what can happen in the full 72 hours, I would encourage you to even consider having those sardines longer than 72 hours, because there will be a transition point. If you go back and look at the case, I think I labeled that lecture, oopsie, wrong one. I labeled that lecture John Ford's Fatty Tail. And it was when he took on that sardine challenge, really saw that improvement show up in that final day, past that 48-hour mark. And then just couldn't believe how much better the numbers were even a day or two later, and said, well, I just think I'm going to do this for a longer period of time. And he did. He is one example of dozens, maybe hundreds of patients where their strength to fast isn't. I mean, they can white knuckle it, but I see their numbers do a lot better when they're eating in this sardine phase, and watching to see that their ketone production got higher. They're supplying enough fat, and the nutrients that's going in makes it much less difficult than doing an actual fast. Now, there's still a very important place for fasting, but while you're doing this, if you're really struggling, I would put in some BHB. But you're getting plenty of fat in that sardines, especially if you're like Jillian, having 2 to 3 cans of sardines a day to really supply you with the nutrients and the amount of fat with that protein. So I would say stay the course. All right, let's see what the next question is. That's from Jerry Cash, a regular on the show. If the dawn effect causes the glucose to be high, would it be okay to use supplements to biohack like berberine or the cinnamon? Well, I'll tell you, when you use those supplements, you are trying to lower blood sugar with a few mechanisms that move the blood sugar into the intracellular area where the access to fuel, so that the glucose can get to the mitochondria so it can fuel those cells. When I look at some of the better hacks for people who are struggling to get that dawn effect down, I want more and more of their mitochondria to use ketones. Jerry, the final lecture that the students are going to have here inside the show is called The Art of Fasting, and we really talk about uncoupling their mitochondria, a time where their mitochondria no longer listen to the consumption of food. A coupled mitochondria is in tune with calories in equals calories out. And that's the equation when they're on a glucose-filled diet. When that glucose is not their main fuel, when they have ketones fueling more mitochondria than their glucose, the equation changes. Now, in our evolution, that happens only when our mitochondria are looking for fuel and we're not eating enough. So it's a time of a famine. Our bodies said, hey, why is there such a shortage of food? If you're going to be the one who survives that shortage of food, you're going to be able to dive into your fat storage and produce energy despite not eating it. And we call that an uncoupling of the mitochondria. It no longer listens to what you're consuming. So when I see a dawn effect that's really high, that's been recurring in people with insulin resistance, I'm going to push them to pull their mitochondria into that uncoupled state more often and pull in a higher number. So I contend that the supplements that you put on there do a tiny bit to put some glucose intracellular, but I would be doing things like a sardine challenge. I would add ketones to your circulation if you're feeling badly. That's what beta hydroxybutyrate is. So Jackie Tanner writes in and says, what is BHB? BHB is like you can put glucose into water. That's what sugar is. You can put a ketone into water, and that's what BHB is. All right, so Lacey has a question over here. Let's move on to Lacey's question. She says, I tried sardines and threw up after the first bite. What else can I use? So I would contend that a palate is developed. And first thing I would tell Lacey is that I'm sorry that your mother did not expand your palate when you were a child. That if you look at the people who eat sardines routinely and do a rather good job, I mean, they tolerate sardines without the retching. They are used to them. They're used to the flavor. It's just like the first time people eat blue cheese. They think it smells rotten. I often tout to my children that my job is to expand your palate. You need to have a bite. I don't care if it's liver or blue cheese or sardines, that expanded palate. One of the reasons for the sardines is, and we covered this in class today, was we are not trying to spike your dopamine. We know that plenty of foods give you pleasure. This is a first world problem where we have abundance of food. We have abundance of processed food. The skill set at learning how to say no to food begins with saying, I'm going to say yes to one food that's nutrient dense, that is not my favorite flavor, that is not something I'm addicted to, and that really, when they are able to process what that food can do for them, as far as raising their ketones and lowering that glucose, the return of learning how to eat sardines is worth it. So I would point out that people that retch when they eat a food, you're not allergic to this. You are that your palate is immature, your palate is not developed, and that it's a learning curve. There were several other skills we covered in class about coping with things that are uncomfortable. I think that's a higher return of our focus. You'll see that I did not make a menu for these students. It's not filling their minds with types of foods, I think feeds an addiction. Instead, we are trying to nurture them with relationships, being in a community that's honest, that's very transparent, sharing numbers across a dashboard about where am I at, where are they at, and then really appreciating that there are lots of skills that I lack too. And if I want to work on those, working on them in a place where it's safe to fail, sardines become a place where you can practice living without luxury, living in a zone that isn't, I'm not doing this to hurt you, I'm doing this to say there's a skill set missing. And if you want to be good at the life of food that isn't toxifying your body with the reward of eating when you feel irritated or upset or down or emotional, then we need to practice what happens in the absence of pleasure with food. So I appreciate that isn't easy, so don't give up. All right, we got a couple other questions here. So, that's, I can come back to that one. Let's go to this one. So Gina writes in and says, is a sardine fast a substitute for the 36-hour water fast only? I answered that a little bit in the question I just answered, which is we're practicing a skill set that many of the students do not have. They are not able there's some of them that have never fasted, and there's some people who fast and they are not getting great numbers. I contend that their endocrine system is not as keto adapted, they're not as fat adapted. They can't uncouple their mitochondria as much because they're kind of niche. They're just they're not consuming enough fat. So it is another reason why the sardine fast is a place where I tell them, I don't care how wide open your eating window is, I want you eating sardines for 3 days, and anytime you get hungry, you don't have to eat the whole can, you have to have one bite. And here's some coping skills if you don't like sardines. We're trying to develop a skill set in your of tolerance, of living with this doing hard things is a learned skill. I mean, I talk about my son being a wrestler, and I go to that wrestling room and see these boys are tired. I don't think there's a sport out there that works as hard as what these wrestlers do. And gosh, it's so easy to give up. It's so easy to say, forget it, I'm out. This is not what I want to be. And I was telling a mother the other day her son is a kind of ultra athlete in baseball, and I can't remember the other one he was in, but her husband was a wrestler. And I said, the women who have the best husbands are the ones who married a wrestler. And it's because they have developed this ability to do difficult things. They can deal with pain, they can deal with adversity, they can deal with loss. And what a gift to give my son as he enters into a world that's going to be filled with disappointment and loss. And the way you find the joy in that is not only having the skill set to deal with a food that isn't very comfortable on your palate, but finding that there must be a way to persevere through that difficult journey. So I said, you married the best one. The best men are wrestlers. I have 3 sons, so you don't tell them I said that. But all right, a couple more questions. Mary writes in and said, is there a way to prevent fish burps? Well, you're burping from those fish because your peristalsis, the movement throughout your gut, is not used to this high of a fat content. That if you would do like John Ford did, which is eat the sardines or the mackerel for a month, you would find that your gallbladder gets more efficient at storing the bile that you need to emulsify the fat. that your pancreas gets better at producing the enzymes that break down the fat, and that you push that fat into the places where you can really extract the nutrients. And it is very nutrient dense by the end of that month. But when you have the sardines once in a blue moon, it's a high fat content. It's a unique fat that needs practice at metabolizing it. So it gets better. That, and I don't know, I eat pepper. I like pepper. I don't know if that has anything to do with burping, but my husband says quit putting the onion near it because it's even worse smelling. Last question of the night we'll take is what to do if one has lost maybe too much weight. Should I limit my fasting? Is a male at 6'1", currently 58 years old and 158 pounds. At times, I feel like my metabolism is like I was in my 20s, and my last hemoglobin A1C was 5.2. So 5'1" puts you at 72 inches. Is that right? I'm gonna look this up on my app here. Yeah, so no, wait, 72 inches is 6 foot even. 6'1" is 73 inches. And at 158 pounds, that's a body mass index of 20. So that's right on 20.8, so just about 21. So that is lean, very lean. One of the important parts about having weight loss is what you're really saying is, I don't want to have any muscle loss. I would like it to, if I'm going to lose weight, I don't lose any weight from my bone density, and I don't lose any weight from my muscle. So that muscle sparing weight loss is associated with a high ketone number. So this is where the circulation of ketones is not only something that happens when your metabolism gets stronger and that uncoupling of the mitochondria happens, but that high circulation of ketones also has a protein sparing, meaning it does not use the muscles of our body as fuel, which is a terrible fuel to begin with. Like, you're not going to get very far if that's what you're fueling your body with, but our body will use it when you're in that starvation mode. By being in a state of ketosis, we give a sense of confidence that you're not using those muscles as a resource for fuel. You are using fat, which is the kind of weight you want to lose. So I get that question a lot because people are using the scale to measure their fat content. I would contend that the better answer is to be checking a bone density. It's a little bit of an x-ray, and it shows you what is your fat content, what is your, in your body, what is your bone content, bone density, and then what is the water content. Okay, so I am counting down these. I got a glucose of 57, and my ketones are 2.1, so about the same. So really close to, I can't remember what my glucose was at the beginning, but I'm definitely ready to eat my can of sardines, people. All right, so I do appreciate the live. If you want to know how to lower your A1C, we are going to put that on our end screen at the end. We give a great lecture on how to do that. We're actually living it out live here on the show, and we're thankful for your grace on any of our sound issues, but really just encouraging the ladies that are doing this on the live with me. So I say thank you to them. We will see you next week, and for the students in the class, we will see you tomorrow.